Greetings, everyone. I'm Mar. Once again, this is my opinion. Now we come to Season 4, Episode 2 of Everybody Loves Raymond, the can opener. This is another Aaron Schur and Susan Van Allen episode. Doesn't have any deleted scenes per the DVD, and it deals with something that IMDb calls the Rashomon effect. It's where characters remember the same event from two different points of view. And I'll just say both points of view, it's hilarious to see the different interpretations of it. Now, this episode deals with something that could have been a simple argument between the spouses, but gets blown out of proportion because in typical Ray faction, the parents are dragged into it, and Robert's also dragged into it, but that's because he's siding with Debra. Now, the episode starts, Robert's coming over to get some coffee. You notice right away there is some tension between Ray and Debra. Out of milk. Hey, what? You wanted milk? The question at the top of it is like, I wonder what the tension could be. And of course, even without knowing the specifics, the title foreshadows a bit. It's probably going to involve a can opener in some form or fashion. Well, as we find out from both Ray and Debra telling their version of events, the previous evening, Ray came home from work. Debra was wrangling the kids. She hadn't had time to make him anything, so Ray's like, okay, I'll go make my own dinner. He gets some tuna, he's going to make something. He opens up using a new can opener that Debra got that cuts the sides so there's no sharp edges. Ray doesn't really like the can opener, can't really figure it out at first, but he gets to it. He gets tuna juice on himself and he gets a little irritated, and as he puts it in both versions, I would have preferred the tuna on bread, but it's just as delicious right out of the sink, which annoys Debra, which she says, this is the can opener I got, because it's not stupid and I'm not stupid, and she storms off. And Ray just is like, did I say something wrong? Now, as we've seen in previous episodes time and time again, there is a lot of times when Ray is oblivious to words. We're going to see this a lot more in the future. This is probably my prime example of it, but not my favorite example. My favorite example is going to be in the episode involving older women. That's the one where it's really the most oblivious, because it's like, really, Ray? You should have just not said anything. But here it's like, what'd I say? And he even can't even figure it out as he's finishing telling the story to Marie. It's like just one thing about a can opener. Which, as an aside, I can understand Ray's little frustration here, because my late grandmother did have a can opener that works similarly to this. Not the same design, but similar where it cuts from the side. It took me forever to figure out how to put it on, but once I did, I'm like, I've been living like an animal. This is a better can opener. So I side with Debra in this fight on that. Now, the fun thing, and the reason I bring in the Rashomon effect here, is that both stories are told differently. Now, if you look at it on the surface, they're told in a way to make the storyteller seem a bit better. Kind of like how whenever you hear testimony in court, you really got to weigh, okay, how much of this is actually how it went down and how much of it is them trying to make themselves sound better. You can say that's a little bit of the security officer in me having to deal with people, so I'm a little bit jaded. There's that, but in the context of this show, it's also knowing these characters, knowing that, yeah, they're going to make themselves sound better. Especially Ray, because we see how it is when he goes across the street to his parents, that something could be minor, but he makes it a whole big theatrical production that should be staged and put on Broadway for all the world to see, with his parents up front going. And here, he makes himself super sympathetic. Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, I'm home. How's everything going? Whereas Debra's at the table, feet propped up, paper in front, eating. Haven't made you anything yet, Ray. You could definitely tell from how those are two. He is doing that to know his audience, making himself all more sympathetic. Like, what'd I say? Like, woe is me throughout the whole thing. Tuna fish. And on the other hand, with Debra, she makes herself all sympathetic, like, it's not stupid and I'm not stupid. Which contrasts immediately with how Ray has her say it, it's not stupid! Tale of two Debra reactions. And of course, in Debra's version, Ray's also a lot more abrasive. Like, nothing! Was there anything wrong with the can opener? What's for dinner? And with that, you're like, what actually happened the night before is definitely somewhere in the middle. Debra was obviously not that meek and all that, but she was not as, I haven't made anything for you, Ray. She probably was a little irritated from having to wrangle the kids into eating dinner. And then what Ray's going on. Ray, on the other hand, was probably not as nice as in his story. Like, that. But he wasn't as abrasive as in Debra's story. It's a little bit of both. But I have a feeling that Ray was still oblivious at the end. Like, what did I say? It's like, you had to really lambaste her choice of a can opener after her working all day like that, Ray. Stupid, stupid man. Now, the pair do reconcile and make up a bit, think about it. But that happens only after Ray goes across the street and tells his parents all the thing what happens. But before I get too far off topic, I do think that Debra did intentionally downplay her part of the story and make herself look better just like Ray did. Because she knows that Robert's more likely to side with her than with Ray because of how he is. So just putting that there. The fight starts again when Marie comes across the street with an old-fashioned can opener. Everything would have been fine if not for that, but that starts the fight anew. It's a better can opener, which in this part of the fight I do side with Debra. And of course, in the whole thing, Frank comes over and gives his theory, which he told to Ray across the street, and that he's blaming it on hormones, which is something we've heard Marie mention that Frank will blame certain things on. And we're going to see it again in the future. Like, I think we've already had the... no, we haven't. The Ladies' Days episode, that's when it's going to come in. That anything he's going to blame on that. I can just imagine Frank saying that, going to say, you're only complaining because you're on your period. Whoa, Frank, you might want to tone it down. At least they didn't come out and say it like that, but it's implied in that episode. Here it's like, really, Frank, hormones? It couldn't just be because your son was a jerk? That's when Robert actually calls him a jerk to his face. I heard the whole story, jerk, which was good. And this whole little kerfluffle here where they're talking about it, getting arguments, Robert's trying to pull everyone down using some of that conflict resolution training that he was taught and employs as a New York police sergeant. And then it goes up all because of a certain incident from the past is brought up by Frank. And that is that sometimes it's about a jar of fat. Which I love this story, that they had their own incident in the past similar to this. Instead of, whereas Ray getting upset about a can opener and causing Debra to storm off, it was Frank pouring out a jar of fat to use for his coins. And the two going back and forth on it. This is probably the best part of the episode. And it goes with a good speech from Frank, which, although a little misguided and a little misogynistic, you can kind of see where in his twisted mind he thinks it's very logical. And it's, in what makes it best is Peter Boyle's delivery of it, where he's like, where was my thank you? I waltzed in every day after 10 hours stuck in a suit, stuck in an office, stuck in a car, and if I needed coins to pay the tolls that got me to that job, that paid for that meat, that made that fat, I'll dump it out wherever I want, and I don't care what you say. Insert Ray going. Excellent thing. But it's punctuated by a line that he says afterwards. It's like, woo, Frank. It's probably not the best thing to say. Where he tells Marie to her face, I don't have to care. That's your job. In the context of her doing all that work there. And that's like, ew. It's one of those things like if you're there like, I'm just going to back up and leave. That's a situation that in real life might actually lead to a physical fight. But thankfully, this is a married couple where they're not going to fight. It's not like Frank's going to go, to the moon, Marie. Wouldn't have been as funny, but they do make up a little bit, but it's implied there's going to be some fighting when they go back home. They're just happy they're not arguing over a can opener. And then they laugh it off. It's like, your fight was a little stupider. Although probably a little bit more justified in certain contexts, but it was just as stupid as the can opener over a jar of fat. Which begs the question, Frank, you couldn't go get another jar for coins? I mean, think about it. They sell jars at the store. You could buy jars for canning at the store. You could have just got a new one, got one of the jars for yourself, and given the rest to Marie, and be like, alright, I got these jars, I only need one, here's the rest, do some canning or whatnot, Marie. But nope, you decided to pour out another one that she used to prepare food. That's just Frank's way. And it's another little interesting contrast to between the two couples. And it just makes me wonder, wonder if with Frank's parents, if there was a worse situation that was similar to this. Probably was, as we constantly get compare and contrast between all of them, where we find out that Nana Barone was just as horrible to Marie is to Debra, but probably a little bit worse so. All in all, this is a pretty entertaining and very fun episode. Nice little examination of seemingly small marital disputes that, depending on what the follow-up is, can spiral a little bit out of control. Nice little compare and contrast between the two different Barone marriages. And it's one of the reasons why it was one of my favorite episodes of the entire show. I mean, if you want more insight into that, you can look at my top 10 Everybody Loves Raymond episodes. I do talk about that in here. And overall, definitely one of the better episodes of the season. And, of course, that's just me looking at it ahead of time. Out of the ones on this disc, this is probably one of the few. Although, next one probably might be in the running, because the next one's a good one. The next few episodes are actually pretty good. Because I don't think there's that many episodes from this season that I skip. I'm just looking at the disc real quick. I see one that I skip sometimes. I see one I usually skip all the time. Actually, looking at it, those are really the only 2 episodes of the season I usually skip. One of them, it depends on my mood, and the other one, because it's really not my favorite one. I know some people are going to say, then why isn't season 4 your favorite? Just as a whole, the episodes in season 3 just draw me a little bit more. Not to say that this season is bad, but looking at it rounding, this would probably be my second favorite season as a whole, off the top of my head. But I have to look at what's in 5 and 6 before I make that. But I think it'd be this one, and maybe that's because they were the ones that I was introduced to. In case anyone's wondering what the episode I always skip is, it's Cousin Gerard. Mainly because that one just doesn't grab me. I know what the point of it is, but we'll talk about that episode when I get to it, because that's episode 7, so it'll be another 5 weeks if this is a once per week pattern. Oh, that's about it I could say about the can opener, so till next time, guys. And what will be next time? Let's just see. Next time, it's going to be an episode involving betting and Frank. And part of the discussion involving the episode, at least from Debra's perspective, it's kind of topical considering what happened to Peter in the previous season.